Welcome back to another Explainer, Focus Learners. Today we're diving into a truly unbelievable modern boxing epic, the fall and rise of Anthony Joshua. We're stepping right under those blinding lights of the Jeddah Superdome in Saudi Arabia. Now, this was universally expected to be just a routine tune-up fight, you know? But man, it unexpectedly turned into a desperate, nail-biting battle for survival, both physically and mentally. This absolutely wasn't just a fight against the guy across the ring. It was a full-on collision with destiny.
Okay, let's dive right into this. 20 seconds. That is literally all it took for the unthinkable to happen. Just 20 seconds after that opening bell rang, the former two-time heavyweight champ of the world was shockingly dropped to the canvas. In the blink of an eye, the entire script for the evening was just shredded.
You could hear the sheer disbelief from ringside. The commentators were screaming, "Oh, Prenga drops Joshua almost immediately." Prenga landed this perfectly timed uppercut, and Joshua goes down earlier than he ever has in his entire professional career. I mean, it was a moment of pure, unadulterated shock. The whole arena gasped. Joshua was on the mat before the fight even really got going.
To truly grasp the scale of this crisis, you have to picture the staggering contrast here. In the ring, Joshua is stumbling around, his legs are completely gone, and he suffers a second knockdown. But hanging right over his head? A pending billion-dollar super fight with Tyson Fury. That monumental financial payout, and honestly his entire legacy, was just evaporating with every wobbly step.
Now Joshua somehow survives to the bell, even flashing this dazed kind of smile at Prenga. But the damage on the scorecards? Totally catastrophic. A 10-7 round, if you follow boxing, you know that is an absolute disaster. It cemented this as the single worst round of Anthony Joshua's professional life. His comeback, his reputation, it was all shattered into pieces right there on the canvas.
Now, what's really interesting about this next part is the hidden weight, the ghosts of the past.
To understand exactly why Joshua was so incredibly vulnerable in that first round, we have to pull back the curtain a bit. 7 months ago, an unimaginable tragedy strikes in Nigeria. 3 months ago, right in the middle of that profound grief, he signs the massive Tyson Fury contract. And then, 0 hours ago, the opening bell rings. This intense personal trauma and a billion-dollar business deal violently collided on this exact night in Jeddah.
That tragedy from 7 months prior wasn't just some passing headline. It was a devastating car crash in Nigeria that took the lives of his rehabilitation coach, Sina Gahami, and his strength coach, Lateef Latz Ayadela. These guys were his absolute closest friends. Joshua survived the wreckage, but as the people closest to him knew, a very real part of him died that day in the crash.
The sheer depth of that loss is captured so perfectly in his own words. My left and my right. That's exactly how Joshua referred to his fallen friends. When you realize that, it really hits you. He wasn't stepping into that ring alone. He was carrying the heavy, suffocating memory of his brothers with him under those bright lights. He was literally fighting with a broken heart.
Let's move on and see how this builds as we get into the second round resurrection.
You know, champions are defined not by how they fall, but by how they rise. So, we return to the present moment. His corner is screaming. Promoter Eddie Hearn is yelling from ringside. But suddenly, Joshua's eyes clear. The bell rings for a do-or-die round 2. And we can actually track this incredible momentum shift in 3 distinct steps. Step 1, Joshua comes out with absolutely nothing to lose and immediately pressures Prenga against the ropes, physically imposing himself. Step 2, he establishes a heavy, dominant jab, totally shrugging off Prenga's counter attempts. And step 3, he finds his range, setting up the perfect opportunity to land a massive right hand straight down the pipe. Complete control, regained in just a matter of seconds.
And then, boom, the explosion. With just 30 seconds left in the round, Joshua executes that third step flawlessly. He lands that right hand with such devastating intention, crashing Prenga to the canvas. And then he follows it up with a right hook that actually sends his opponent falling backward through the ropes. There is absolutely no way he's getting up from that. The crowd completely erupts, his team mobs him, the referee waves it off, it's over.
So the absolutely crucial point here is the sheer suddenness of this turnaround. Round 2, 2:43. In less than 3 minutes of actual fighting time, Joshua went from the most disastrous, legacy-ending moment of his career to a spectacular, brutal knockout victory. He literally snatched his destiny right back from the brink.
But the story doesn't end there. That brings us to the emotional release. Because the true climax of the evening really wasn't the knockout itself.
It was the intense vulnerability that followed. That violent finish stood in such a stark contrast to the sudden, overwhelming emotion Joshua showed just moments later. When they handed him the microphone in the center of the ring, the euphoric high just sort of faded into this deep sorrow. He said, "It's more than punch power. That was spirit. That was Lotz and Cena. That was the family." And as he spoke, Joshua just broke down in tears. The immense, agonizing grief he'd been suppressing for 7 grueling months finally surfaced, spilling out in front of the entire watching world.
He was struggling so deeply to speak that Eddie Hearn actually had to step in and take the mic, just to give him a moment to breathe and collect himself. Joshua quietly muttered, "They are my brothers. I don't want to talk about it anymore." It really cemented for everyone watching that this victory, it wasn't about boxing rankings or money. It was a deeply personal, incredibly painful tribute to his fallen brothers.
And that sets the stage for what's next. The Fury fight awaits.
And this brilliantly illustrates where we are now. With the ghosts of his past honored and conquered, the focus immediately shifted to the incredible future ahead. Both fighters had flawlessly executed their required tune-up bouts. Joshua survived his massive scare and stopped Prenga, while Tyson Fury had done his part by stopping Marius Walk just the night before. This collision course officially validated that massive contract they'd signed 3 months prior. It was locked in, for sure.
And hey, if there was any lingering doubt about Joshua's mindset after that first-round scare, he erased it entirely with this euphoric warning sent directly to Tyson Fury. He proclaimed, "I'm the most brutal and vicious and most ruthless champion there's ever been. There's no one can stop me." It was a clear, unshakable signal to the whole boxing world. Anthony Joshua is well and truly back, and he is absolutely ready for war.
So what started as a simple tune-up fight became an absolute masterclass in resilience for all of us. Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua officially coming in 2026. Joshua had to overcome unimaginable tragedy in his own darkest round in the ring just to pave this golden road to the biggest, most lucrative, and definitely most dangerous battle of his entire career next year.
Which leaves us with this final, burning question to ponder. Having survived his absolute worst round ever and having conquered the heavy ghosts of his tragic past, is Anthony Joshua's resurrected spirit really going to be enough to dethrone Tyson Fury in 2026? He fought for survival in Jeddah, but next year he fights for immortality. Thank you so much for joining me on this Explainer Focus, learners. It's been a wild ride, and I'll catch you on the next one.